Daniel, the Steelers organization wanted to congratulate you on your freedom, and they sent you an original jersey.
Juju, oh, it's signed. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's Juju and it's signed. Oh my God.
Yeah. And they want to tell you or that you're out and that you're free.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
wow.
they love you, as we love you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steelers organization. See, I'm a real Steelers fan.
Okay.
I love this.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Sam Silver, and I'm the president of the Pennsylvania Innocence Project. The name of this event is When Justice Fails, but tonight's program, which is hosted by our Pittsburgh office and our Western Pennsylvania board members, and which shines a spotlight on our work in Western Pennsylvania, is really about the power that each of us has to take action and change outcomes. Tonight we address what we can do when justice fails. You will hear from several individuals. Some are private attorneys who decided to step outside their comfort zone of handling civil cases and committed their time and talent to our work on a pro bono basis. One is a former police officer whose commitment has always been to get to the truth. And others are members of the Pennsylvania Innocence Project staff, like our Pittsburgh managing attorney, Liz DeLosa, who has led our Western Pennsylvania work since we opened our Pittsburgh office 5 years ago. Our staff members devote every working day to this important work. Everyone you hear from tonight has one thing in common. Each made a decision that they could not and would not be still when justice fails. We hope that you will make the same decision. The work that you will hear about tonight cannot be done without your support. This is true even of the work that our pro bono attorneys do, as they always work in tandem with our professional staff. Your support is what ensures that there is hope even when justice fails. Given that our program tonight features our work in Western Pennsylvania, it is fitting that our MC got his start with a degree in fine arts from the University of Pittsburgh. It is my great pleasure to introduce and turn our program over to Ruffin Prentiss, an actor whose long list of credits includes multiple roles on television and voicing the lead character in the popular video game Watch Dogs 2. Ruffin will be appearing soon in a recurring role on the upcoming season of HBO's hit series Insecure. Ruffin is also a member of the Artist Advisory Council at the Epic Theater Ensemble, which aims to form a more inclusive and collaborative vision of America. Ruffin, we are so proud that you choose to be associated with the Pennsylvania Innocence Project, and we thank you deeply for joining us and leading our program tonight.
Hey, thanks Sam for the welcome and kickoff to tonight's program. And what a wonderful surprise for exoneree Dan Carnevale. Dan was exonerated in March 2020 after serving nearly 14 years in prison for 3 fire-related murders, which he did not commit. Modern fire science determined that the fire was accidentally started and should never have been considered arson, meaning that Dan was incarcerated for a crime that didn't even happen. You'll hear more about Dan's extraordinary case later in the program. For now, we couldn't be more pleased that this diehard Steelers fan is enjoying his freedom and now has a signed jersey from his favorite team. I'm honored to be your host for the evening. As Sam mentioned, I'm a University of Pittsburgh graduate, hail to Pitt, and hold a special place in my heart for Western Pennsylvania and for the work that the Pennsylvania Innocence Project is doing there. Tonight's program will offer insight into the challenging work the project does every day to free people like Dan who were wrongly convicted. The attorneys will share the ups and downs of trying to prove their client's innocence in a slow and sometimes unwelcoming legal system. And you'll see from each of them the satisfaction they feel in doing this work. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our first segment. You'll meet the project's legal director, Neelam Songvi, and attorneys Jay Evans and Jim Figorski, both of whom have provided pro bono assistance to the Pennsylvania Innocence Project for many years.
I'm Neelam Songvi. I'm the legal director with the Pennsylvania Innocence Project, and I've been here for the past 8 years. And today I'm really thrilled to have the chance to talk with two of our pro bono attorneys who have worked with us the most and the longest here at the project, Jim Figorski and Jay Evans. So Jim and Jay, if you could each just introduce yourselves and tell folks a little bit about your background and what drew you to doing work with us at the Pennsylvania Innocence Project.
My name's Jim Figorski. I'm an attorney at Dechert LLP in Philadelphia. I've been a lawyer for about 15 years now. Before that, I was a Philadelphia police officer for 25 years. So I was probably, of those times, I was about 21 years in a narcotics unit, and I retired as a lieutenant in 2006 after I went to college and law school later in life. I started looking at cases initially, looking at the initial applications, and I went on at least 2 of those cases all the way through to litigation and to eventual exoneration.
And I'm Jay Evans. I'm a partner at Schnader Harrison, Siegel & Lewis in Pittsburgh. And I've been there for about 6 years, and I've been volunteering with the Innocence Project for about 6 years. I've been practicing law for over 20 years. I realized that there's a lot more to the plight of the wrongfully convicted than I was willing to see. And it took me a long time to get here, but I'm really glad that I've been involved with the Innocence Project since 2015.
We've been really lucky to have you both on so many cases. Jay, you've worked with us on kind of a different group of cases.
Right, sure.
Where there may be misconduct. We haven't even really gotten there yet because we're still in the investigation phase. And you've really been working mostly on DNA testing cases with us and asking prosecutors to go back and test evidence. Talk to us a little bit about what your experience on those cases has been like.
No, absolutely. For me, the most surprising thing about DNA testing cases, the resistance to seeking those answers has been universal. And we're not talking about convictions in the recent past that we're trying to test new evidence. In one case, the prosecutor, I'm not convinced, was born yet when the conviction took place. And so the desire to maintain the integrity of a conviction that is older than you, I'm struggling to see why confirming that conviction or discovering the truth is something that we should be hesitating about. It seems to me intuitive that finding out what happened should be paramount.
I think you hit on such an important point there for our work that resonates on a lot of different levels, right? Just getting somebody to listen to us, getting somebody to listen to our clients' stories for the first time. And what has that experience been like for both of you, just meeting with clients, hearing their stories, and trying to think of some way, we might be able to help?
I had the opportunity to meet Sean Thomas in prison shortly after we decided to represent him in court when we took his case for litigation. PIP agreed, and also Dechert agreed that we should actually go ahead and litigate the case after we had done the investigation. And Sean, like so many other inmates, had tried over and over for years to try to show his innocence in court, and he had lost at every case, every step of the way. And I sent him a letter that said, look, here's the story. We're going to go ahead and represent you in court. About 3 days before I went to see him, and I went to prison, and Sean was really tired and he couldn't stay awake when I was talking to him, and I said, what's wrong? He said, I haven't slept in 3 days. And I said, why not? And he said, because I've been up walking my cell every night because I can't believe somebody's listening to me. I got your letter and I thought I was dreaming. And I've been walking around in my cell reading this thing because this is the first time somebody's actually listened to me. I think there's so many people who are innocent who no one listens to.
So both of you are employed at big private law firms. Have your firms been supportive of your work? This is hours and hours of work you're doing for us and for our clients for free and spending money on experts beyond just your own time. What has the experience been like, and what do you tell your firms about why you want to keep doing this?
I think Dechert's been more than supportive of my work. They not only support me, but they're actively involved. They insist that we do this kind of work. I mean, not only do they allow us to do pro bono work, they mandate that we do. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the work that we as a firm do pro bono.
Absolutely, 100% agreed on Schnader as well. I mean, when I started at Schnader, and they pretty soon after, they started with the tagline, "The higher calling of the law." And I've been with law firms. I'm familiar with taglines, and sometimes they're just taglines, and sometimes they mean it. And Schnader has always meant it. Schnader is a firm where they check in with you and they want to know why you aren't doing pro bono if you aren't. And I'm happy to say there aren't many people who fit that definition.
What's the most gratifying experience you've had in your work with the Innocence Project, the Pennsylvania Innocence Project, and then what's been the most difficult moment?
The first one's easy. That was walking Sean Thomas out of prison. The day that, I mean, it was an 8-year battle to get Sean out of prison, and it just happened all at once. And we drove to the prison that day and walked him out after he had served 24 years of a life sentence. And the feeling of joy that everybody had that day, not just us, not just Sean, but even the prison guards were involved in it. The whole place was just I think that's such a place of human misery that they were glad to see something good come about that day, and everybody got into it. And it was just an amazing thing when it happened, and everybody was celebrating, and everybody gave Sean a round of applause when he left. And it was a feeling like I've never experienced in my life. I would love to feel it again, because it was something that you'll never, I would never forget.
I think for me, the most gratifying was when, we'll go with another Sean, when Sean Burton's pro bono counsel sent an email that just said, "We win." Because we had written a friend of a court brief and worked really hard on it, coordinated our efforts, and we had that amazing, great, long Supreme Court opinion that said, no, reality is prisoners don't have the same access as other people. The challenge is the challenge we started with, which is the resistance to finding out all the facts. And I'll be very frank, I don't understand how you do this as every day. The amount of pressure and soul crushingness that must happen to you when you have to go up against the fact that not everything can be a win. It's not possible, and you're going to face resistance from people who should be seeking the truth at every turn.
What do you say to the family members and to the innocent individuals in prison who are wondering, why am I not that person on the front page? Why is my case still taking so long?
Well, we hear that, from some of the people, and but it's a long time to go through this whole process of challenging the conviction and finding evidence. And you might see somebody getting out today, but who knows how long that person's been fighting. I don't think it was an overnight battle. It might have lasted 10 years. They might have lost at every level at various points in their battle. So I say don't stop fighting. When you stop fighting, you definitely lose.
I think that is a good note to end on. We appreciate both of you so much, and especially the fact that you keep coming back for more. We couldn't do it without you.
That conversation gives me such a different perspective on the issue of wrongful convictions. Dave Fawcett is a member of the project's board and the Western Pennsylvania Committee. He joins us tonight to share his experience and his passion for this work.
Hi, everyone. I've been asked to comment briefly on my experience handling cases for the project involving criminal law. I'm a lawyer, a litigator, and a trial lawyer at Reed Smith. So a few thoughts. First, I think it's really useful for all of us who are lawyers to get some hands-on experience with criminal law. I've handled lots of big disputes, some involving millions and millions of dollars. But still, there is one fundamental difference that I see between civil law, where people often are vicious and have a lot at stake, and criminal law. And it's been a huge eye-opener for me. With civil law, the law is fair by and large. Weak and bad cases are dismissed or settled. And when cases are tried, juries usually get it right. So in that instance, people with power and money and resources can and are held accountable. I believe in the jury system, and I think it's a great one. But in my experience with the most significant case I've handled for the Pennsylvania Innocence Project, that's not so with criminal law. It's different. The law often isn't fair. The procedures often aren't fair at all. People are threatened with and often endure consequences that are way too punitive and unfair. But mostly, the biggest difference is that our government that has enormous power and resources, cannot or is not held accountable when it does something wrong. In the case I've been handling, city detectives, federal ATF investigators, government agents, government experts and forensic experts, when we proved that they did some of the things they did, horrible things, like paying witnesses, including a 15-year-old boy without disclosing it, using him and other unreliable informants, coaching witnesses as they went to court how to say things that weren't true and to mislead the jury, withholding information they knew should be given to the defense. Well, a new trial was granted, but there's been no accountability. And that's generally true in our criminal law system in America today. So the upshot of that is that makes for a really uneven playing field. My view is that every exoneration sends a message and raises our consciousness. Something's wrong and we have to fix it. So thanks particularly to everyone in Pittsburgh who's given and in some way it allowed us to start and run an office here and to provide the services we do. Thanks for your help. It's really, really appreciated and really, really needed.
Thanks to Dave for your dedication over the years to the Pennsylvania Innocence Project. You can see that the project would not have had its successes without the assistance of the incredible attorneys who dedicate their time to the project at no cost. Between the legal complexities and litigation obstacles faced in each case, it's no wonder the road from wrongful conviction to exoneration is a long and arduous one. Besides needing more professional hands available to help the project and get faster relief for those who are in prison for crimes they did not commit, there is also a need for funds to move cases along as well. From DNA testing, which can cost as much as $10,000 for a single round, to hiring forensic science experts to testify, even paying for the travel our attorneys take to visit their clients in prison. Every dollar you donate to the project helps us get one step closer to exonerating an innocent person. I hope that hearing these firsthand accounts of the injustices faced by the wrongfully convicted will inspire you to give to the project. They cannot do this work without the support of folks like you. You can give at any time during the program by clicking the donate button on your screen or by visiting www.painnocence.org/donate. Now, Susan Metcalfe has seen the obstacles firsthand throughout her time working on Dan Carnevale's case. Dan's case illustrates the types of roadblocks our clients face and the hope that the project's work brings to them. Susan is joined by Liz DeLosa, Pittsburgh managing attorney, who worked on Dan's case alongside Susan and Neelam.
So I'm really excited to have the chance today, Liz and Susan, to talk about Daniel Carnevale's case. He was exonerated in March of 2020, but it feels like we really haven't had a chance to sit down, certainly not in person or even via Zoom, to really kind of process the experience of working together for Daniel. Daniel was convicted in 2007 out in Pittsburgh in Allegheny County for arson and murder. Kind of a crazy case from the get-go related to a fire that had occurred over a decade earlier in 1993 in an apartment building. And I remember, Liz, when you joined us in 2016 and we opened the Pittsburgh office, this was one of the very first cases that I asked you to kind of put on your roster. Then Susan, you joined the team not that much later, I think in 2017, when you were at that time at the Duane Morris firm, when we suggested this case as one that might be potentially a good fit. What was your reaction to it? What struck you about it?
The first thing that struck me when I read through the file that you sent over was the Third Circuit opinion, I think, because here you have a panel of extremely experienced, qualified, excellent jurists who had commented in the course of the opinion they wrote, commented on the evidence and essentially said, were we in the courtroom, in the trial room, this case would not have gone forward. To paraphrase, that the evidence was so lacking. And that really impressed me because, I know the Third Circuit judges do a thorough review and would not say something like that lightly.
Once we decided to take on the case, the core question really ultimately, I think for us, boiled down to, was this even a crime? Was this an arson or was this an accidental fire? So Liz, can you just describe a little bit about how, we went about trying to figure out the answer to that question and see whether there was any basis that we could say we had some new evidence or something that a court should take another look at in this case after all these years?
Yeah, sure. So, we have to rely on the investigators' notes, all of the police reports and supplemental reports, all of the pictures that were taken and that we are able to get our hands on today. And then we took all of that information, any information that we possibly could gain about the building, through news reports, through, the trial file, and asked Doug Carpenter, who is a fire investigation and fire science expert, to review the investigation in this case and help us to determine whether he felt like that investigation would meet the standards of fire science investigation today, whether it had met the standards of fire science investigation of the time, and eventually came back and said that he believed that the determination that this was an arson was potentially flawed, was hastily made, and that he thought that the actual cause of this fire was an explosion in the boiler system.
Right, and so this case is a little bit unusual even for an innocence or wrongful convictions case because we're not just saying our client didn't do it, we're saying nobody did anything. So there's sort of two layers there that I thought made this, and our other forensic science cases pretty unique. We can talk about our investigation in a little bit, but what was the first thing that started to open the door for us and more importantly for Daniel in this case?
Yeah, so it was a couple of things. We were also litigating a different arson case here in the Western District in federal court, and that sparked the government to pull some old ATF arson investigation files. And when they did that, they just happened to pull Mr. Carnevale's old ATF investigation file. And within that file, they found a chemistry report from 2007 in which a second chemist had reviewed the work, the 1993 chemistry analysis in this case, and had actually disagreed with all of the findings. And so had that report been disclosed to defense counsel at trial, certainly that could have resulted in a different verdict. And so like you said, the Commonwealth initially asked for our petition to be dismissed on procedural grounds, but once this new evidence came to light, they agreed that Mr. Carnevale conviction should be vacated and he should get a new trial.
And I remember, I think I was sitting in this room when we got that filing from the Commonwealth and you called me, and I just remember saying, holy smokes, we thought we were in for a real fight. We were ready for it. But, really to the credit of the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, they did not stand on technicalities once they saw something that so clearly had violated Mr. Carnevale's rights and agreed that the conviction should be vacated, which the judge did. And I think right around the holidays, the best, kind of end of year gift that we could have gotten and that Daniel could have gotten, certainly. But what a lot of people, I think, don't realize is once your conviction's vacated, at least in Pennsylvania, that's not game over. You don't get to come home. It's not an exoneration. The best we can really ask for in a post-conviction proceeding here is for a new trial. And for a while, it looked like that's what we were going to gear up for. We were in pretrial status. Daniel was just as if he had been back, kind of essentially just arrested in 2006. We were thinking about asking for discovery. So Liz, talk to us about what really kind of turned the tide at this juncture.
So it actually, as a part of one of the Commonwealth's responses, there was a new document which gave us a more accurate name for the insurance company. And the insurance company had done a really thorough investigation on the claim for the building after the building was destroyed. And eventually we found 6,000 pages of insurance investigation related to this fire. Within that were original police reports that the Commonwealth and the police officers at the 2007 trial believed had been lost. And they were critical. One of the items of evidence that linked Mr. Carnevale to this fire was a witness that said that they saw Mr. Carnevale coming out of the building right before the fire broke out. And that witness knew Mr. Carnevale from the community, said that it was light enough, and that he immediately recognized Mr. Carnevale, and immediately told police officers his suspicion that Mr. Carnevale had potentially been involved in setting this fire. And that was the testimony at the 2007 trial. Unfortunately, that testimony could not be corroborated with those original police reports because they were believed to have been lost. So within this insurance file, those original police reports existed, and they were drastically different from this witness's 2007 testimony. In fact, he did speak with police on that night, but his description of what he saw was an unknown white male. I did not see his face. And not one, not two, but 3 police officers individually took reports and each wrote down that description.
And, that was such a critical piece of evidence because that witness was the one who came forward in 2006 in response to an article that was placed about this cold case. And so, with his story being so dramatically different in 2006 from the night when it was fresh in his mind, and he was talking to police officers, really calls into question this witness's credibility and what his motivations were for coming forward in 2006. It was, again, to the department's credit that they saw that testimony and saw that evidence for what it was and took it under advisement.
Right. I think, when we were sort of at the end of the post-conviction proceedings and had the conviction vacated, we were in a place of, I think everybody had real questions about the fire and whether it was an arson and the chemistry. But this really put us at a place of, even if it had been an arson, there's nothing to link Mr. Carnevale to this. Everything really did fall apart at that point. And the 3 of us were able to go to the DA's office. They took a meeting with us. We'd sent them a lengthy letter outlining all of this and really sit down with them and go through the case that they really no longer had. And Susan, what was your goal in that meeting? And what, you're coming at this not as somebody who does this every day. So what did you want to get across to the prosecutors in that meeting where we were trying to convince them, there's no there there? There really never was, but we certainly know that now.
Yeah, I think it was to be there and make it clear that we were ready to go the distance and that we would win. that we had so much in our corner at this point that it would really be kind of almost a fool's errand for the prosecutors to pursue this case at this point, that they would have a terribly uphill battle. And what would be the point? You know, if you objectively look at the evidence, this man doesn't deserve to be sitting in jail.
I think the thing that strikes me from reflecting on this case and our conversation today, and I think this is a theme through a lot of our cases, is persistence and a little bit of luck. You know, we have to dig in so hard, and hopefully that digging in does get that little bit of luck that we need to open the door, and literally the door of the prison, as it did for Daniel here. So any final reflections from either of you on Daniel's case or the project's work?
I can't imagine a more worthy cause and more satisfying result. And I'm humbled and proud at the same time to have been involved in it, and looking forward to remaining involved and maybe doing another case with you guys soon.
Well, it was an honor to work with both of you on this one, and to see Daniel at home, still having some struggles, obviously, as all of our clients do, but being able to help him through some of that with Reentry, and just seeing how excited he is to start working with us on policy projects to make things better for people in his position has really been just so wonderful to see. So Liz, on a lighter note, as you know, I'm from Pittsburgh and I'm a lifelong Steelers fan. So, you know, Daniel is our client because he was innocent, but I was so happy to see that he shares my love of the Steelers to the point of having the logo tattooed on his head.
Yes, he does. It was wonderful to be able to present him with a signed jersey from the Steelers organization, and specifically from Juju Smith-Schuster, who we can't thank enough for recognizing Daniel, recognizing what he's been through, and also being part of a moment of happiness for him, which he absolutely loved.
A dream come true.
That conversation speaks to why I was moved to be here tonight. It's knowing that the wrongfully convicted lose so much time in their lives, and time is so precious. And now we'll hear from Jeff Bresch. Jeff has been a board member and an avid supporter of the project for years and helped obtain the exoneration of Crystal Weimer. Jeff has witnessed how hard reentry is for an exoneree and shares his perspective with us tonight.
6 years ago, I had the privilege of joining a team with the Pennsylvania Innocence Project and walking a client out of prison. On that day, naively, I thought that justice had prevailed and victory had been had. Sadly, I quickly realized that that was not the case. I learned that our client was left soon to face the next social injustice, reentry. And we can all appreciate the hardship and the nightmare and the emotional trauma that one would face after walking out of prison wrongly convicted over 2 decades. But I'd ask you to look back at your own life and think, what life's events would you miss and opportunities would you have lost if you'd lost the last 2 decades of your life? And similarly, think about trying to re-enter a society that you've stepped away from for 2 decades and how life has changed and how you try to re-enter that process. Each of our clients suffer big and small challenges, but we can agree that most, if not all, come out penniless. They come out jobless. And what's worse about not only being jobless, the prospects of a job are virtually nil because the skills that they did have been marginalized or diminished. And I can tell you firsthand, I've laid witness to applicants applying for a job and try to account to an employer a 20-year gap in employment. And when the explanation is, well, I was wrongly convicted and I spent 20 years in prison for a murder I didn't commit, sadly, that application goes to the top of the pile, as it should. It moves to the bottom of the pile. We also see clients facing dramatic healthcare challenges as a result of decades and decades of poor prison health. Now, I will tell you, I'm deeply proud of the work that the project is doing on reentry. And in the Pittsburgh office, they're doing an amazing job, but with limited resources. We have a part-time social worker who's aided by very talented and dedicated student interns. That's not enough. And I will tell you that the irony is, the sad irony, if you will, is that prisoners that are paroled, those people that have accepted culpability for the crime they committed, receive better and more important reentry services than exonerees, our clients who profess their innocence and are ultimately adjudicated by a judge to be actually innocent. That's sad. And we know that Pennsylvania is one of only 14 states that doesn't provide restitution for exonerees. And not only did that mean they're being denied financial ability to take care of themselves, to add insult to injury, they're being denied social services to help them through the process. So how do we fix it? Well, the first is to raise awareness. And I think that's what we're doing tonight. And I think it allows everybody to understand that the fight is just beginning. I, for one, needed to understand that, because the fight isn't when they walk out the door. The fight is to try to safely and effectively re-enter a society that has abandoned them for so long. And how do we do that? Well, it's by adding additional resources to the project. And how do we do that? It's by raising funds. And I will end my not so subtle plea this evening, but invite anybody to reach out to me after the program and continue this important dialogue. And with that, I will say thank you and good night.
It is truly incredible how an exoneration is the end of one struggle and the beginning of another. While exoneration is a cause for celebration, it can bring with it new challenges, as Jeff so eloquently demonstrated. We hope that hearing about the needs of our clients inspires you to support the project as it works to expand its reentry services for exonerees in their life after exoneration. Our Transition to Innocence program, run by our staff social worker, is just the beginning of the resources we offer to exonerees and would like to expand to their families and loved ones. There is so much more we can do, and with your help, we will reach those goals. Next, we'll hear from Nan Filer, the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Innocence Project. Nan will be followed by a very special Q&A, where you'll be able to ask some of tonight's panelists your questions about wrongful conviction and the project's work.
Good evening. Thank you again for joining us. I hope this evening's program gave you insight into our work fighting for the freedom of people who are wrongly convicted. As you can see, it is a long and complicated journey that depends on the work of our amazing volunteer attorneys and staff and supporters like you. Each year, the Pennsylvania Innocence Project receives over 500 requests for help from prisoners throughout the Commonwealth, all of which receive a rigorous review to determine whether they have a valid claim of innocence. If so, the project investigates the case to identify potential pathways to relief. It is a long road to freedom with many setbacks and frequent appeals, both in state and federal court. Behind me, you can see a fraction of our files, which shows the volume of cases we are working on at any given time. We're extremely proud that we ended 2020 with our 20th exoneration, a milestone that gives us hope as we continue our work. Most were arrested while young and robbed of the opportunity to start careers, attend college, learn a trade, start a family, really enjoy the prime years of their lives. Our exonerees have spent an average of 22 and a half years in prison for a crime of which they are innocent. Along with our legal services, we also work to remedy the underlying causes of wrongful convictions to ensure that no one will be wrongly convicted and imprisoned for a crime he or she did not commit in the future. Finally, our reentry services, which you've learned about this evening from our board member Jeff Bresch, provide critical support and services to exonerees in their journey to return to their communities. Our social worker provides individual case management and facilitates a peer support group for people from throughout Pennsylvania who've been exonerated. While we need volunteer support, and we welcome any of you volunteers, attorneys who would like to participate, we also need additional staff to take on more of these cases and continue this important work. That's where you come in. Please give to the Pennsylvania Innocence Project so we can make sure every incarcerated innocent person has a chance for freedom. You can make a donation by visiting painnocence.org/donate or click the button on your screen. After you've made your donation, please stay tuned for after the program we're having a question and answer session with some of tonight's panelists. We'll be accepting questions through the chat feature and look forward to hearing from you. The Pennsylvania Innocence Project firmly believes that its work in obtaining exonerations, however slow the process, is enormously important in raising awareness of the deep historical inequities and racism in the criminal justice system, and is an essential part of improving our communities and the lives of those who have every right to a fair justice system. We hope we can count on your support. Thank you again.
All right, folks. I don't know about you, but I am feeling inspired and ready to support this work any way I can. Thank you for joining us tonight and learning about the problem of wrongful conviction and the work the Pennsylvania Innocence Project is doing to address it. Now, all you have to do to stay tuned for the Q&A is to keep the screen up, and we'll get that started in a moment. You'll be able to ask your questions through the chat feature. In the meantime, if you haven't yet shown your support with a donation, please click that donate button or visit www.painnocence.org/donate to find more ways to give. Every gift, no matter the size, means the world to the project. Help be a part of the movement to exonerate those who have been convicted of a crime they didn't commit, to prevent future wrongful convictions, and to assist exonerated individuals upon their reentry to society. The project thanks you, and I thank you. We couldn't do this without you.
Hi, everybody. I am so excited to see everyone in the chat, and I'm excited to get this Q&A started. I'll be joined by Nan Filer, our executive director, Neelam Sangvi, our legal director, Liz DeLosa, our managing attorney in Pittsburgh. I will also be joined by our pro bono attorney volunteers, Jay Evans from the first panel discussion, and Susan Metcalfe. Jay from Schnader Harrison, and Susan from Potomac Law Group. All right. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to get us started off with a few of my own questions. And the first one, I'm actually going to lob to Liz and Neelam, which is sort of a refrain of Jay's question earlier. How do you do it? How do you do this work day in and day out, especially when there are a lot more disappointments than wins sometimes?
So I'll take that one, and then Neelam, shoot it to you. I think that, sometimes it can be very difficult and very disappointing, but the highs absolutely outweigh the lows. And also, it's not just the days in which we walk a client, out of prison, which is enough to keep you going for years and years. But it is every single time that we speak with a client and visit a client, and that client relates to us that we have imparted a sense of hope that someone is out there, that multiple people are out there, an organization that's out there, and believes them and is looking into, the facts of their case diligently. And so being able to leave each and every one of those conversations imparting that piece of hope, I think you tend to define success a tiny bit differently, and connecting with your clients and your prospective clients and letting them know that we are interested in everything they have to say. Is the way I approach this work.
And
Great.
I would say
Thanks,
we
Liz.
do this. Yeah, we do this every day because it needs to get done. There are so many innocent men and women in prison, and it's really our honor and our privilege that they trust us after having been so wronged. by the legal system. And even if we don't win their case, so to speak, like Liz said, hopefully we are giving some dignity that they haven't received from this process before. And there are really hard days, and we need to tell ourselves to step back now and then and regroup. But ultimately, it's the clients who keep us going, because their days are much tougher than ours.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks. Thanks to you both for everything you do. Next question, I'm going to shift over to Susan and Jay now, and just ask, what kinds of opportunities does volunteering with the project bring for early career attorneys who want to gain experience and also want to help with this work? And Susan or Jay, whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent opportunity for lawyers to do excellent pro bono work. The reason that I got involved is, I enjoy doing pro bono work. I consider it one of my duties as an attorney, as it is, certainly. But these kinds of cases really provide some meaty opportunities for people to really dig into files and to learn a lot. And for younger attorneys in particular, there's a lot of need for early stage review, where they can get involved in a way that they don't necessarily have to be out front and center if a case goes to trial. And that can provide a lot of great experience.
Absolutely, and I think the key here is that a young attorney gets the opportunity not just to go into court and argue a routine motion. I can think of many times when I was a baby lawyer going through the cattle call line of lawyers to walk a motion through, and that was the experience I was getting. But this is a chance to get in front of a judge and argue something with real teeth and with real meaning, and to be part of a case from beginning to end that you're not always going to get the opportunity to do as a younger attorney. So not only are you getting valuable experience, you're getting valuable experience that's going to better the world, and that's invaluable.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And thank you both for everything that you've done. Now I'm going to move on to some questions from the chat. I do see a question about if we have any volunteer opportunities for our reentry program. And Nan, I don't know if you wanted to speak about our reentry program, the services we offer, and maybe the ways that we hope to expand it.
Sure. Thanks for the question. But the reentry program is still growing. It's, as Jeff Fresh said, it's small, and there's a lot of need. I think we really can't overstate the trauma of being released after 20 years for something you didn't do. Our program includes case management and a group, support group, peer support group as well. And we're hoping to expand it to, at the request of exonerees, to their family members, to really help with relationship building. So it's something we're hoping to build. We don't use volunteers at this point, although we have partnerships with many, many other organizations. I know one of the questions was asking about mental health services for exonerees, and it's an excellent question. And we do have partnerships in Philadelphia and with mental health providers who provide low cost or free counseling and therapy and trauma-informed work. And we're looking to expand that to Pittsburgh.
Fabulous, thank you. Next question is a pretty specific one. Are there any lobbying efforts from the Pennsylvania Innocence Project changing the law so there is a right to get post-conviction discovery from DA's offices?
Well, I can start that, maybe Neil, and you can join in. We are working on several initiatives with in hopes of changing the laws in Pennsylvania. One is working with partners to try to see if Pennsylvania can finally join the other states to provide compensation and services for exonerees. Another issue is videotaping of interrogations, which is really important because we do have cases where people falsely confess, oftentimes because of coercion or fear. And without a videotaped record, it becomes before the jury very, very difficult to overcome the fact that someone confessed, even if it's a wrongful confession. And the third area that we're working on is really thinking about how to amend the PCRA law, the Post-Conviction Relief Act, so that it's, because we have one of the more difficult laws in the country, making it very, very hard to get back into court. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Neelam.
Sure, and I want to give a little context for the question for people who might not be as familiar, but here in Pennsylvania, you get very limited information as a criminal defendant before you go to trial in terms of the police investigation. And after you're convicted, you can basically get no police reports, forensic reports, or anything like that. Even if an exhibit was introduced publicly at your trial, you can't get it. And so it's a real problem. Access to information is what turns the tide in most of our cases, including Daniel Carnevale's, as Liz explained earlier. And so we're attacking this on many fronts. As Nan mentioned, we're looking at trying to amend the Post-Conviction Relief Act to change the law around post-conviction discovery, but that's going to take a long time. So we're also looking at other options, such as looking at discovery rule change through the Pennsylvania Supreme Court Rules Committee, and also approaching individual DA's offices on a case-by-case basis, making the pitch for open file discovery in post-conviction, and we're starting to make some headway there. So this is really critical to our mission, and we're thinking about it on many different levels, including, but not limited to, legislative change.
Great, thank you. Thank you both. Another question that I think gets asked a lot is what are the paths to compensation that are available to exonerees in Pennsylvania while we remain one of the 14 states where you do not get automatic compensation from the state as an exoneree?
Well, there's not a lot of routes. One thing that doesn't always succeed and not everyone can do, but there are cases where exonerees have sued civilly the jurisdiction for the violation of their constitutional rights. And for those people, there may be a settlement. Now, it's hard to celebrate too much because nothing gives people back the time they've lost. But they're challenging cases to bring, and not everyone can, has the evidence to proceed. So it's not really the answer. The answer is really to change the law.
And if I can just add in, from the 1983 civil rights standpoint, not only are those cases hard to win, they take an inordinate amount of time often, unless it's a very, very egregious case. I've worked a case pro bono for my entire time at Schnader, not connected with the project, but it was filed in 2005. The gentleman in question, who was wrongfully convicted of murder, passed away. And now it's his estate that may someday see some sort of redress. And so putting it all together, this is a place where it is great that the project and other actors are working hard on the compensation end, because the avenues are few, they're costly, and they're really, really slow.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all so much. I know this has been a really informative evening for me. I am not seeing any added questions in the comments. If anyone wants to throw a last one in there. If not, then I'm going to say thank you all so very much. It has been a pleasure learning from you, and just watching these segments and hearing your answers to these questions has been a real pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for all that you do. And now I'm going to, yes, I'm going to turn it over. Thank you, Nan. I'm going to turn it over to Tommy Harold, who has really been a champion of this event and is just one of our favorites out in Western Pennsylvania. She does so much for the project. She's done so much to make this event happen, and I'm really honored to present Tommy Harold to you all.
Hi, I'm Tommy Harold, and I'm a Western Pennsylvania board member. And on behalf of the PA Innocence Project, I wish to thank all the law firms, law departments, and volunteers for the 100 hours of service that they've provided to the Innocence Project. I also want to thank our donors and sponsors. Without them, we essentially don't exist. I would also like to thank the event planning committee, Liz, Jess, Nan, and Doris Brogan, who's not on the screen tonight. I would also like to thank our speakers and our host, Ruffin. Thank you for sharing your stories and talking to all of us about what happens when justice does fail. And to all of you who shared your time with us tonight to learn more about the Pennsylvania Innocence Project. If you would like to learn more, please feel free to contact any one of us. Our contact information is on painnocence.org, our website. And I think that's a wrap. Thank you again and have a good evening.